All right, we're here at the 2024 Leadership Summit for FPSC. I'm here with Pat Beauchamp. He is the
Vice President,
Vice
Data
President,
and Analytics.
Data and Analytics for Hill Knowlton. Pat, we just saw the presentation that you did. Great in consumer perception, consumer reports, and what people are thinking right now about their food. What do you think the implications are right now for that, for food processors across the country?
I would say that there's two, Nick. The first one would be this constellation of issues around food safety, food inspection, some of the doubt and possible confusion around that issue. I think there's some opportunity in the packaging or in the relationships with retailers to provide consumers with some information about how food is inspected and what is inspected. And I think the other one that I would stress is how people have been coping with inflation, some of the changes that they've made, which is analogous to what we went through in COVID-19 and the potential permanence of some of these changes. So if I was a food processor, I would spend some time trying to figure out which of these changes will be permanent and which will not, and maybe try to adjust accordingly.
That's great to know, and I'm sure we'll keep that in mind for future reports and research. We're here at the Leadership Summit, and so as the name suggests, we are to talk about leadership. What do you think leadership plays in all of this? You know, we know what Canadians are buying, we know what they're not buying anymore. We know that we're here with a lot of employers and food processors, most of them upper management. Where do you think leadership falls in all of this?
Well, I'm going to refer back to a study that we did a couple of years ago on generations. So it was a labor market study, and we looked at how different generations look at the world of work. And one thing that stood out was the difference between older employees and younger members of the workforce. And if I was a leader, I would want to keep the following in mind. So there were really large differences, and people can go find that report. It's on the website. But older workers were autonomous, they were self-starters, they didn't want to participate in, that much. They weren't going to work to get a sense of community, a sense of belonging. It was more like, I'm doing my job, I'm going to get paid, I'm going to go home. For young people, it was the opposite. So they are looking for sense of community. They want to make friends. They want to have a supervisor who they get along with, who's a nice person. And they're looking for these sort of perks that have to do with things like sports teams, snacks in the lunchroom, sort of these more peripheral things that sort of the older workers aren't all that interested in. So I would bring that up.
Awesome. That's great to hear. We are at the first Leadership Summit for FPSC. You're one of the inaugural speakers for this year.
Yeah.
What do you think of this being a long-term initiative, having people here every year?
Well, I think it's a great idea. The setup is excellent, obviously, since you guys are doing it, but there's a good crowd, there's lots of enthusiasm, and it's just great to see people come together like that from different parts of the sector. It's a growing sector. There's a lot of interesting issues. So I would definitely, I'd come back every year.
You'd come back to speak?
Absolutely, yeah.
There you go. All right. Thanks a lot, Pat.
You're welcome.
Appreciate that.